Hi, I'm Douglas Burdett, host of the Marketing Book Podcast, and if you're an author or an author's publicist looking to learn more about being a guest on my little corner of the podcast world, I made this video just for you. As background, I started the Marketing Book Podcast in January 2015, and every Friday since then, I've published an interview with the author of a new marketing or sales book. The podcast has been named by Forbes as one of 11 podcasts that will keep you in the know, and by LinkedIn as one of 10 podcasts that will make you a better marketer. The show now has hundreds of episodes, over 1 million downloads, and listeners in over 150 countries. I don't podcast for a living. I have a day job running a small marketing agency focused on manufacturers and industrial companies. The Marketing Book Podcast is just an extracurricular activity that I love doing. Anyway, much of the success of the show comes from carefully selecting which of the hundreds of books I now receive each year to feature on the show, and the fact that I read every book before each interview. The fact that I receive so many books now is funny to me because when I started the podcast, the only concern I had was that there wouldn't be 52 marketing books published each year. Well, there are evidently, and while this is a nice problem to have, the pressure I now feel to pick which books are featured on the show is one I never thought I'd face. So what kind of books do I tend to feature on the show? I'm particularly interested in topics that have to do with the intersection of marketing and sales. In other words, is it a topic that would be helpful for a marketer as well as a sales professional? Would it also be helpful for a new CEO looking to learn more about modern marketing and sales? Or someone who has suddenly been thrust into a marketing role or perhaps had the word marketing added to their existing job description? Is it a topic that connects marketing with revenue? Those are some of my favorites. Books about sales and marketing and alignment are in the sweet spot. Other topics that I like to feature include how to better understand customers, word of mouth marketing, how to engineer a better customer experience, consumer behavior and psychology, content marketing, and the changing way that customers are buying now versus just a few years ago, and how best to respond to that. There are some categories of books that I tend not to feature but am frequently pitched. One is books about entrepreneurship and the startup world. There are other podcasts that are ideal for that, but unless the books are primarily about the marketing of a startup, I tend to pass. I tend not to feature books about social media unless the book is about strategy without regard to the quickly changing details of each platform. I tend to pass on books about general management, leadership, branding, personal branding, networking, and personal productivity. They're just a bit outside the sweet spot of what I know my listeners subscribe to this podcast for. Also, most of the books featured on the show are from publishers I know, like, and trust. And that's primarily because the books are usually well written and edited. That's why self-published books are not usually featured, although I have had some on the show. To be considered for the podcast, I need a printed hard copy of the book sent to my office. The address is on this page. If it's a new book that hasn't gone on sale yet, a printed galley is fine. And part of the reason I need a printed copy of the book is because in preparation for each interview, I marked the book up while reading it. So because of the growth of the show, I'm now fortunate enough to receive books nearly every day to consider for an interview. And that leads to one of the very few things I dislike about producing this podcast. Because I have such respect and admiration for anyone who writes and publishes a book, having to pass on an author's book for the podcast pains me deeply. But that doesn't mean that the book would not be ideal for many of the hundreds of thousands of other podcasts now being produced. That's why at the bottom of this page is a link to a short guide I wrote to help authors with their podcast outreach. It shows you how to find the ideal types of podcasts, including the more popular shows. No emails required, just click on the link and it's all yours. I've also included some other resources for authors about finding success in promoting your books with podcast interviews. Thanks for your interest in the Marketing Book Podcast and for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful, and if I can answer any questions, please click on the contact button on this site to send me a message or email me at douglas@salesartillery.com.